First up, Stephen Howard and Murray Horton from Keep Assets. Gentlemen, do you know your way?
E te rangi e te papatūnaku, e te whare e tūtonu nei, e te ropu kaupakahaere o tautahi, e ako hoa e hui mai nei ki tēnei rā, ki te tautoko tahi o whakakaha o te tahi tēnā koutou, tēnā kia ora tātou. Ki ngā whakaeke homi to the council and everybody, hello, and we hope that we're here today to support your work in rebuilding and strengthening Christchurch. G'day once more. We represent CORE, as I've said before, which is a group of various parties. Most importantly, we're interested in the collective assets of the people, especially democracy. Events are moving pretty quickly at the moment, more quickly than most citizens realise. And this is what the neoliberal proponents such as Jenny Shipley used to encourage. We see in the press that O Takaro had funds withheld by Jerry Brownlee on the behest of so-called business leaders. Extraordinary considering that the board of that undemocratic organisation is mainly business people. Just this week we also see that there are proposals to sell the bus exchange, without which it will be more difficult for the council to meet Leanne's wish that public transport should be controlled by the council. Until such time that the council and the people of Christchurch can wrestle back control of work and assets that are rightfully the realm of the council, we will be suffering from a democratic deficit. Kia kaha, kia toa, kia manawa nui. Be brave, be strong and be good-hearted. The whakatauki in the mihi expresses the need for leaders to be able to weld together different groups and interests. The reason for using this one is that CORE sees the council is under pressure from various quarters to lead only for the commercial sector rather than becoming leaders of all, as it is required if we are to keep our most significant asset, our local democracy. Our understanding is that DCL is a commercial enterprise vested in CHL, which is vested in the council. That's more degrees of separation than is useful. In separating such commercial enterprises from direct council control, there is strong movement away from, and I quote, aligning activities with the vision and strategy of the council, end quote. Unless, of course, it's the strategy and vision of the council that the assets should be stripped away from the public in line with zombie neoliberal hallucinations. Retaining assets is at the heart of democratic socialism, but we're helpful because Leanne, again in the Cathedral, made a point of claiming a Labour perspective, and the third line of Labour Party's constitution makes a claim to democratic socialism. It's becoming a fashionable word, democratic socialism. The major justification for transferring these assets to this commercial body appears to be to encourage developers to get on with the job. There are two objections to this way of thinking. The first is there's no good reason for that role not to be a council role. We've seen claims that the private sector were more efficient fail so many times in the last 40 years that it takes a special type of mind to cling to this zombie ideology. It is possible and desirable for councils to lead development. The second objection is that there's no shortage of spare land for development in the central or near central city. It would be far more effective to simply charge greedy and lazy landholders who wish to retain blocks empty as land banks. CORE encourages the council to implement a punitive rate on undeveloped land in the central city. This applies to all three sites, but coming now to our deepest concern is the transfer of Milton Street site. Our preference is that City Care should be immediately restored to the strategic asset list, retained as an asset, and preferably returned to the council as a works department. With the retention of a central city site as its base, City Care has more potential to satisfy the needs of the people of Christchurch. We've heard some vague hints that City Care, is considering moving, but there are a series of questions about that. Are the council and councillors driving this move or this discussion? Is it another empire building dream of the directors? Does it align with the council objectives, vision and strategy? Is it possibly a possibility being considered because of this proposed transfer? We urge the council to be very cautious about any action that weakens City Care as an asset of the council. We're also curious as to which other sites the council has in mind to transfer and why. We accept that some small landholders could be released and given the need for development but given the need for development for community facilities such as a Hornby Aquatic Centre, a clear vision transparently communicated to the people rather than piecemeal transfers would both be better and more democratic. It's possible to envision the empty Brown Street property, for instance, being used as an example of what a council-led public housing could be. Thank you for listening. Kia kaha, kia toa, kia manawa nui.
Thank you, Stephen. Murray, did you want to speak?
I'd just like to make one point that I back up what Steve said. Our concern primarily is the city care site of the three there, the one on Peterborough Street and the one on Beresford Street. But I was intrigued when I read Steve's submission here to learn that in fact Development Christchurch Limited had put public money into the Christchurch Adventure Park. It's worth the council reflecting on that, because that is public money that in their case has literally gone up in smoke, apparently $2 million worth. And so therefore please do not be bedazzled by suggestions that they might be sort of commercial whiz kids or something like that and will make some brilliant sort of killing on these blocks of land, because there's an example of a commercial investment that has literally gone up in smoke up on the hills. So and DCL remains a shareholder. The council through DCL remains a shareholder in that Canadian-owned Christchurch Adventure Park. So our concern is that having read the document on the Milton Street site, it says City Care has expressed an intention to move. That's an extremely vague statement. When, where, who, by whatever. They've got an existing site. We're concerned that once that's gone, the depot is gone, it'll be that much harder for them to sort of ever achieve what we would like to see, which would be come back as a Christchurch City Council Works Department. And also it is possible that that would make it easier to privatise with the site gone, which we certainly oppose if they don't have their own depot. I think that would be about it.
Thanks, Mary. Just to correct something you said there about the Adventure Park. First of all, the Adventure Park was very well insured. Secondly, it's probably one of the most successful post-earthquake developments in the city. And thirdly, it won Deal of the Year recently in New Zealand for the way the deal was put together, and that deal would not have happened without the council's intervention through DCL. So actually it's been a very successful development, which is still going, and actually will be back on its feet probably by the end of the year. Anyway, any questions? Tim?
Have you actually spoken to the management of City Care about why they, and their principle and their strategy with what they're proposing and why they're moving?
No. We haven't had any direct contact with the management of City Care.
Okay, because, I mean, if you look at Sydenham and if you want to expand Waltham and Addington, they've given up quite a lot as a greater good of Christchurch. You have Brougham Street coming right through. Yep. That's affected those three communities, which are working class, hard kind of communities, which I know very well. And then we've got this in council with its amazing vision, put Brougham Street Village right next to it, and we, you know, got to question that. Here we've got a block of land that is going to be vacated, irrelevant of the ownership and all the arguments you've just put forward without talking to City Care. Then you've got this block of land that's being looked at affordable housing and social housing right next to Sydenham Park, which beats Addington, beats Brougham Street left, right and centre. And so if you could imagine a vision of a community in there with families, etc., close to utilising Sydenham Park, wouldn't that be a really good way to go forward for that community? Because keep in mind that the government closed Sydenham School, which was a fantastic move, because it's just what we need, isn't another car park in Sydenham.
You're right in that there needs to be more development, but there's not a shortage of empty land. There's a Brown Street site that used to be council public housing. There's Sydenham School, as you just pointed out. And as for talking to City Care is owned by you guys, or by the city, and you're the guys that should be directing things. That's the nature of democracy, not foregoing the responsibility.
But democracy also allows you to go and talk to them directly.
Well, it does, but we choose to talk to you because the buck ends up in this room.
Fine, but if you don't want to, that's fine.
We're talking to the master.
Time for one more if anybody wants. Aaron?
Yeah, fundamentally I agree with your position on keeping assets. I've always felt that way. I'm not as big on keeping liabilities, but certainly assets I like, because they give you a good return. And some of in the term empire building dream that some directors have, they are the ones, those directors over time are the ones that have built our assets, like the airport and the port company and so on, which are valuable that you're trying to protect. You say you don't want us to encourage those people to build us more assets as a city. So I'm a little confused on that point, if you could clarify.
No, with the empire building that we don't wave a flag for in relation to city care, for example, is them expanding outside Christchurch. We had this discussion when we were last here, 10 days ago?
We did the budget.
That's right. And so we don't carry, them picking up contracts around Hamilton and all that sort of stuff, we don't sort of wave a flag for that. And conversely, you get the likes of Delta that are sort of working in this city. I realise it's a government-imposed contracting model and all that sort of stuff. But this is not a question of not encouraging, this is hanging on to an asset. Does anybody here know, for example, where City Care plans to go if they're moving their depot? We'll take the opportunity to ask the question. Does anyone know what the plan is? No?
Yeah,
It's a commercial
but just my question on that asset one is, I thought the KOA group was about keeping our rates down by getting a return from our assets. That's core value, isn't it?
We're not so shallowly commercial. The big asset that we're interested in is democracy, which means that you guys, elected by the people, are the ones that do the leading and make the decisions, not some appointed director who the people of Christchurch don't even know.
That's a sort of icing on the cake. Primarily those assets need also perform a very important social function. And the question of housing that you raised, if it was proposed to put social housing, council housing for example, as opposed to what I read in this document, low cost or affordable housing, they're two separate things. They're two different things. The council is still 357 houses down, or housing units down on what it was at the September 2010 earthquake. So let's talk about getting that up. It's all very well saying affordable housing and all that sort of stuff. There's lots of affordable, so-called affordable housing going on in Christchurch at the moment. I walk around the streets of Addington and I see an awful lot of signs saying to rent, to lease, for sale now, because we've now got an oversupply left to the market.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to call Mark Gibson from the New Brighton Union Church. Welcome, Mark. You've got 10 minutes, including questions.
Kia ora tātou, Chair, Rath and other councillors. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you to our submission. I'm speaking specifically about the Beresford Street car parks, the proposed transfer of those 3 car parks. And I really want to address it from the human scale, the small community, local neighbourhood level, which often in governance gets overlooked. And for those of you who don't know, I know some of you do, our New Brighton Union Church has been regenerated itself at the moment. We're about halfway through the rebuild, and the whole concept of our site is that it's a village within a village, and it involves a village neighbourhood house and the existing hall, which is going to have facilities upgraded, and a small iconic chapel. And we really pride ourselves and take seriously our location in a particular neighbourhood to the south of Brighton Mall. And so the 3 car parks in question are geographically very close to us. In fact, our opportunity shop, which is a very popular one, a number of the customers use one of the car parks in question. So, if you don't know New Brighton very well, we're talking about Union Street. It goes across Beresford Street, and to the east and to the west of Beresford Street there are two of the car parks we're talking about. The middle car park, the one to the east of Beresford Street, is used extensively by patients at the medical centre that is next to us. So the block we are in Union Street, largely involves the medical centre and our church site. And we've been researching and observing what's been going on the last fortnight. And in the block, there are 16 on-street car parks. During the week, when the medical centre's open, most of those car parks are taken. At any time the medical centre's open, it's nearly at capacity. So a lot of patients use the middle car park. It's almost directly opposite the medical centre, and they walk across the street. It is 45 metres from the furthest car park to the ramp going into the medical centre. Nearly everyone who uses off-street car parking for the medical centre or for our op shop uses that car park. It's our assessment that in addition to the on-street car parking that's available within that block, there are at any given time during the week 10 to 15 car parks required off-street. So coming back to the big question, our concern is if the car parks are transferred to DCL and then they go into some sort of consultation process from there, the big decision's already been made. They're not going to be car parks. And that's why we think the process is somehow not right, that there needs to be more consultation at the local level, and we're only talking about the middle car park. I know there are very strong issues and needs around the car parks to the west and the east of the central one. For example, the most western one, which is the one in the best condition, is half full most of the time. There are people who work in the area mostly, and it's totally full on Sundays because of Grace Vineyard Church. They haven't got off-street parking, and they are a large church. So there are a lot of issues when you actually get down on the ground, community level, human scale, that, you know, I think needs to be considered before the big macro decisions are made about, yes, we'll simply transfer these car parks, because it does have an impact. And we see the number of people struggling across the street from that car park now to get into the medical centre. We would actually argue that parking should only be on one side of Union Street. It's a very narrow street. When there are cars parked on both sides, it doesn't actually operate as two lanes because cars can't pass each other in the street. And so the off-street car parking is absolutely essential, and there should actually be a pedestrian crossing from there across to the medical centre. That's pretty much the scope of what we wanted to convey today. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yep, thanks very much, Mark. Julie?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Just for clarification, do you feel that the intention to perhaps incur loss of those car parks was not conveyed in the consultation to you?
So ask the question again.
Well, do you feel that people were not alerted to the fact that those car parks might be lost in the transfer, that they would not be there anymore?
Anyone I've talked to, and I've made an absolute point of talking to people the last 2 weeks, most people didn't have a clue, and they all say, "Oh, but they can't take this car park away from us." I ask people, when you drive to the medical centre, where do you park? And most of them park in the off-street car park. So it has implications. I stand there in the street and I think, okay, if those car parks go into housing, and yes, Brighton needs regeneration, we totally support that principle. It needs more people living in central Brighton, we support that. But when you take away those car parks, where are the alternative areas that's reasonable for someone who's unwell or on a walking frame to get to the medical centre?
Yep, that's okay.
It's not easily answered.
And secondly, do people currently pay for any of that parking, or is it all free?
No, it's all free.
Okay, thank you.
Sarah?
Just really quickly, thank you for that. I know that it's been difficult without the extra information available, but were you aware that DCL announced earlier this week at a community meeting about what they were planning for that mall area and for the Beresford Street car parks? So they're actually, when you talk about more people in, the front page of the Pegasus Post has them talking about the potential for those to be residential. It's actually more people living closer to your service and the doctors and things like that.
We know that.
You did know that?
Yeah,
so potential for residential there. But also with the wider redevelopment, they'll also be looking at car parking and where that can be.
Yeah. And that's really important. I mean, some of you know me and know that I cycle everywhere, so I don't get stressed about car parks. But the people in our community do, and particularly the elderly and those who are unwell.
Yeah.
Glenn?
Kia ora, Mark. Hey, have you got a philosophical view on all this? I know you've only come here mainly about the car parks, but you got any
philosophical view?
Well, no, sorry, not philosophical. Ideological. Over what's been said from COA, etc. Does that particularly perturb you over the proposal here?
I support public assets.
Yep.
I'm not speaking for my parish. We haven't actually discussed that in relation to this issue. But what I do know is that we're totally, as a parish, committed to the regeneration of New Brighton, which I know the council is fully informed on. You've had a huge stream of New Brighton people through here and know what New Brighton, the reality is in New Brighton. So regeneration's essential, but I think our people would want there to be good consultation about the possibility of losing public assets. I'm a strong supporter of a lot more people living in central Brighton. We have lost quite a few hundred people as a result of the earthquakes, and if New Brighton's going to hum in the future, it needs local people who are actively supporting their local community in good numbers.
Okay, thanks very much, Mark.
Thank you.
Could I call Carol London and David Shepherd?
I'll make a start. Good afternoon. We're from the Peterborough Village Incorporated Society, which represents the businesses and residents of the area which is bounded by Colombo Street, the river, Barbados Street and Salisbury Street. In January this year, Steve Clark came to one of our meetings and asked us to consider ideas for the block between Kilmore and Peterborough Streets, which is just opposite the town hall. He wanted ideas that would enhance the town hall in terms of development. We called together a meeting of architects and landscape architects and other designers who live and work in the area to put together a proposal which David Shepherd coordinated and presented, which would answer that request for ideas that will enhance the town hall but also enhance our community. David's going to present it to you.
Thanks, Karen. I'll be as brief as I can. These are really notes on the potential of the old convention centre site opposite the town hall. Town hall is making really great progress. Our primary concern, apart from the improvements to the Peterborough Quarter, the future of the land around and in the vicinity of the town hall. Town hall is in a magnificent setting visually with Victoria Park and the river, but when it is opened again, we're going to be in the danger of parking some distance away and using the street, Kilmore Street, for access to the town hall. We feel that the town hall and particularly the entrance to it deserve a greater presence and a greater feeling of contribution by the buildings and properties opposite. We believe that the old convention centre land will give us this opportunity, and we have heard rumours of an Australian development company possibly having the option on the land to provide and eventually develop quite a lot of office development. One, we think that is probably unnecessary in the way development's going at the present time. We're reaching a good level of office accommodation, but we think that the development of this old land, perhaps with contributions, cost sharing and so on, might lend itself more to a compatible, a really attractive setting where the town hall can be seen better. You have access, permeability from as far north as Peterborough Street on the north end of the convention centre land for parking and eventually for uses that are compatible and complementary to the town hall. So just very quickly at the time, I've put together this little presentation. We've shown this to DCL, who we believe are supportive of these ideas, but we would like the feeling that in the transfer of the land to DCL that perhaps there are some conditions set by the council and some objectives set for the nature of the development of this site. So just bear with me, I'll just make sure. Yes. The land in question is the red asterisk area virtually in the middle of the slide. Along the bottom of the slide is the town hall, making good progress, but there is the danger that the entrance to the town hall will open only onto Kilmore Street and have nothing reflecting it on the opposite side. That's just it in a smaller area. The area has been really fallow since the convention centre was demolished. There's a very successful, very interesting Maori garden development opening off Peterborough Street on the north side. Woefully underused, great food, but there's been a lot of interest in the use of this land by groups such as Gap Filler, Life and Vacant Spaces and so on. But we recognise that this is going to need to be developed at some stage. So as Carol has mentioned, we had meetings of members of the Peterborough community, and we came up with particular objectives of scale, permeability, low rise, 3 to 4 story, pedestrian spaces, open space, good planting, good lighting, and good activities at street level. and the ownership mode could be at a small, fine texture. We also looked at possibilities of studio spaces, activities that are complementary to the town hall, like music shops, record shops, cafes and so on, which at present, if you remember the life of in the town hall, if you wanted to have a meal, you skirted along Colombo Street past a number of small cafeterias, and that area was just starting to develop a character when it sadly was affected by the earthquakes. So the land is, I won't dwell on sizes and things, but it's land approximately rectangle starting at the Kilmore Street frontage, extending right through to the north to Peterborough Street. What we've done is to, as you can see in the shape, we found that the centre of the land is directly opposite and on axis with the entrance to the iconic town hall. So you can see some of the shapes and forms in the development, just very in purposely sketch forms that we're not assuming too much, and we're not making a building proposal so much as a conceptual land use proposal here. A piazza extending of different dimensions, north to south, so it gets excellent light, with 3- and 4-storey buildings potentially along both sides, and then links particularly at the half block through to the activity along Colombo Street, which is on the right-hand side of the diagram. You can see the small texture of the buildings, the light sun coming from the north, and buildings including residential, mixed-use buildings, residential and shops, not necessarily in the same building. You could have shops in one block and residential in the other for to overcome the difficulties of mixed-use land ownership. That's just a further issue, idea of the space. That's looking from the town hall across and looking up the avenue. That's a more developed drawing of the looking from the town hall, number 1, looking through to the north to Peterborough Street on the bottom left-hand corner. We've just included in this these notes the texture, the nature of development that could take place. You can see small scale, interesting places. The next few photographs are to give you some idea of the nature of the land use that could emerge. We've lost, sadly, a lot of the old lanes in the city. Our own practice has done the B&Z Centre recently, where we've reintroduced the lanes, and we're getting great support for the idea of the small texture, smaller land ownership. This is a treed version of it. It could go that way, heavily planted. It could be a more urban space like that, 3 and 4 stories. It could be a mix of residential, outdoor spaces, the myriad of places overseas with similar scale. Interesting buildings, pavilions, residential coming onto that block. Good planting, as we say, looking through, and that would be also a further means, direction, route for parking, which could be along Peterborough Street as well. You walk through a pleasant block to the town hall at the end. These are just, again, myriad of examples of places like this, which would be very easy to develop in terms of the town planning structure, and we believe that this is an opportunity and really almost an essential thing if we want to be produce something of a complementary scale to the town hall. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I don't think we've got time for questions, but thanks very much for the presentation.
We have 2 copies of the report, the notes, I'll leave these here.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have a Lance Christian in the audience? No? Okay. Have you had time for questions? Now the statement from John Cook, do we need to receive it or?
Yes, I think so. Has it been handed around?
Yeah, has everyone had the statement from John Cook, which was emailed through? We just, yep, so we just need to note that. Okay. Fantastic. Okay, so that's all the deputations.